How's everyone doing?
How's it going?
Woo!
MAGFest.
This is the correct amount of energy for everyone to have on a Saturday morning, by the way. And yes, 12:45 is Saturday morning.
I'm completely awake because I was up at 7 o'clock this morning, so I don't know.
I hate
don't know
every
what's
part of
going
that
on.
sentence.
Yeah. I don't
Hi.
know what the problem is.
It's nice to meet all y'all. Hope you're having a great MAGWest. My name is Mason Lieberman.
And my name is Steve Horowitz.
3, 2, 1. And we
We
are
are-
composers and audio directors. We
That's
didn't prepare
right.
this whatsoever
That's
in
right.
that regard.
But if this is going to work good, I mean, it's all about what you guys have questions about. Otherwise, we will just play music and babble. So if you have specific questions, specific thoughts, if there's anything on your mind, please go ahead. This will work much better if it's interactive.
Mm-hmm. So maybe we should start by introducing ourselves a little bit and saying some of the stuff that we've worked on and contributed to.
I wrote a book.
Oh, really?
This
You
is
should
the
start.
second book. You guys can check it out if you want. I have a couple of things here. This is the first book. I don't know. I'm just throwing out books. I've got some cards up here and stuff.
Do you want to tell us maybe your bio really quickly? Share with
Isn't
people.
it on the website?
I don't know. Oh. Well, I'm going to introduce ourselves as
Okay,
best as I can.
Okay, you do it. You do it. You go.
Hi, everyone. I'm a composer and music and audio director. I've worked on about 40 or 50 anime series, and in addition to that, a lot of different video games as a composer, a music producer, director, or recording artist. Some of the highlights for projects that I've gotten to contribute to include things like Death Stranding 2, League of Legends, Pokemon franchise, Beyblade, Ruby, Made in Abyss, Rise of the Shield Hero, Super Smash Bros., Overwatch 2, on and on and on. I've mostly worked in the AAA game space and anime, though I also spent about 6 years doing a lot of mobile games as the audio director at Tencent America, where I was directing on titles like PUBG Mobile, Teamfight Tactics Golden Spatula, League of Legends Wild Rift, Game for Peace, and a bunch of others.
That's good. What'd you do on Death Stranding 2?
On Death Stranding 2, I was the cello soloist, actually. So I also
Play cello.
I happen to be a cellist, and I'm kind of okay at it. I spent my young teen years playing a lot of cello, and like performing around the country and around the world with orchestras and stuff. And then I decided, what if I just didn't do that as my job anymore, and I was just a lot worse at cello in the future. But still good enough for this. But don't ask to hear like my Dvorak. Like it's pretty sad.
That's an amazing testimonial, though. It's like your goal was to get worse at cello.
And I succeeded.
Amazing. Awesome. So my name is Steve, composer, bass player, longtime audio director with Nickelodeon. First with Nickelodeon, then Nickelodeon Paramount, and now Nickelodeon Skydance Paramount. I don't know, but if you
every time they merge, they just add more to your title.
Unbelievable. Well, I don't know what to take off or what to put on anymore. But composer, long time. I also write chamber music and concert music. Have about 36 albums of original music out. Wrote a couple of books with my writing partner, Scott Looney. They're up here. You guys can check them out. I started teaching one of my students from the AAU back in the day. Started teaching first at the Academy of Art University, music and sound for games, when nobody was really had that curriculum of putting that together. Then moved over to San Francisco State, spent a stint as the executive director at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, and now I'm back at San Francisco State teaching there, private composition lessons. Anyone go to SF State here in the audience? There's always somebody.
Do we have any Berkeley or USC students? I teach at Berkeley and USC. I forgot.
Yeah.
The
Berkeley,
other one. I'm
California,
just going to
or
say
Berkeley?
the other one. It's probably
Berkeley Baston.
Berkeley College of Music. All right, let's go. Let's go.
Did you know Michael Sweet when you were there? Oh, Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Mm. How
But that's
dare
okay.
you,
I don't
Steve.
teach there anymore. So, yeah. No, she was accepted.
Oh,
But she decided not to go.
oh,
That's
good
different
for
than you were rejected, and then so yeah. Yeah, cool. Good to see you again.
Let's go, Berkeley.
What else can I tell you guys? So how many of you have played any Dora or Diego games? Yay. Okay, so you've probably seen my work. How many have played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games or SpongeBob games? Okay, a few more hands. So I've spent a lot of time with Nickelodeon properties. I actually got my start in doing game sound and music in the early 90s. So at that point it was Cadillacs and Dinosaurs was one of the first titles that I worked on. But that's when it was the merger of Silicon Valley and Hollywood, Sillywood. So there were a lot of good games that were made and a lot of really terrible games, but it was a really nice time to start in games, a very wild, wild west in terms of the platforms, in terms of what was being made. Tons of horrible games with Tia Carrera in them and lots of video. But yeah, I actually started in console games and then moved over to Europe. I lived in Europe for a while, and when I moved back to New York, I got hired as the audio director in-house at Nickelodeon. So that's my story. Bass player.
Also a bass player, but probably
Cellist.
a worse bass player.
Yeah.
I think Steve's played bass a little longer than I have.
Yeah. Say what? No. No, I was just around at that time, for the... No, absolutely not. That was a terrible game.
I'm
Absolutely
realizing
awful.
AV left the microphone for audience questions, like right
Yeah,
here.
right here. We're supposed to have you talk on it, or we get in trouble.
I think so that it's audible on the video that they are filming. But yeah, do we want to open the floor to any questions potentially? Or?
How many? Well, let's do this one. So, how many composers are here in the room? Write music. Oh, that's awesome.
Nice,
Fantastic.
nice.
How many sound designers? How many composer sound designers consider themselves both? How many voiceover folks who are dealing with any voiceover editing or
Musicians in general.
yeah? The music
Yeah.
at the pool was really good. You missed that at 11.
Oh yeah. Super Soul Bros, they're
the
great.
The group from Portland.
Yeah, the group playing
No, underneath some kind of tree, underneath the deck of tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're thinking of underneath the deck tree.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Super Soul Bros played my wedding actually.
Nice.
Robbie's a great guy. They were really sweet. I don't even remember if they charged for it. I think I offered them money and they were just like no. But like carpooled down. It was great.
Yeah. So again, this will be a lot better if it's interactive. And so for the composers out there, for anybody who's trying to either get into the field or working in the field or already doing stuff, any questions that you have? I mean, you must have questions because things are so in transition, messed up in certain ways, transitioning in other ways. You must have questions about industry stuff, music stuff, anything. Yes, please.
What's up?
Come to the microphone.
If you can just grab the microphone and then bring it back with you so it's easy.
It's too close. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Is it on? Yeah, flip it on.
Hello? Okay.
Yay!
Great one.
Awesome. So
And that's a Berkeley student, people. Let's go.
Yeah, woo!
I can work on mine.
Graduated on the spot.
Yeah. So
If you'd have gone to the conservatory, you couldn't have turned that on.
I'm just saying. Well,
It's our modern
technology
education.
program. Maybe they would have known something about that. Well, anyway. So obviously you can do game jams and you can work on like student games, and
Yep.
that's really good experience. So I've heard. But what do you think is maybe like the next step for somebody who wants to really break into the industry of like getting a gig besides being like, well, I like did this jam and here's my portfolio.
So I'm happy to jump on that one for you, Steve.
We get a little more background.
Uh,
Just can you tell us just a little bit more about your background, your musical background, what
Yeah.
you've been doing with game audio so far?
So I'm a classically trained pianist of 10-ish years, but I've also been on GarageBand for like since I was like a small child, and then that developed into like producing skills. So I do a lot of like Cubase stuff. And I started doing music for games like senior year of high school. That was my first like jam, and so I'm trying to do more of that now. But I've always like loved game music. I just never really started writing until recently, I guess. So.
Thank
so
you. Thank
what
you.
what
Mo-
I would say to you, and I'm going to start by mentioning I did not know this when I was in college. So by definition, you're going to be further ahead than I was, like at your age immediately, just because
Huzzah.
you understand this conceptually. Um, you are never too young to start going out and finding opportunities, going out and trying to build your network. And your network, the people who think of you, who like you, who are friends with you, your network is not people who you've like met at a convention and handed a business card and said, "I'm a composer. Do you want to hire me?"
That's right.
Because they're probably not going to hire you. They don't know you. They don't know a reputation for you, and they don't necessarily trust you. And in order to get hired for something, there has to be trust. There has to be a fundamental belief that you will not screw up on something so royally that they will get fired from their job from having put you up.
That makes sense.
So
Fear.
at the beginning of your career, in order to get opportunities, one, you kind of have to give opportunities to yourself. If there's a type of music you want to be writing, you have to just start writing it for yourself to show people that you're capable of that, to have something to showcase. And then as far as getting those first opportunities, you want to go places where people hypothetically have opportunities. So as a starting point, going to events like Game SoundCon, GDC,
Yep.
really great. I promise you, the first year that you go, probably going to be a net loss. You're probably not going to get that much work, if any, and it's going to be like you're going to spend the entire time thinking like, what am I doing here? What, like, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it is like it's like rolling a snowball down a hill. You have to start somewhere. It's going to be small, but every time you do it, every time you return, it gets easier.
That's a nice
And you have-
metaphor. I like
Well, you have more friends who you're going to see and be like, "Oh, over there, it's my friend I met last year.
Yeah.
How are you doing? How's life?" "Oh, it's been good. I was just talking to this person. Have you met them yet?"
Yeah.
That's going to keep happening over and over. It gets easier and easier.
Okay.
And before you know it, you start doing this. You start working with your friends. They go, "Oh, I know, you're a great classical pianist, and actually the score I'm doing, like, maybe you could record a little bit for it." You start recording. That transitions from, "Oh, yeah, this is my friend who played piano on the score. Actually, yeah, you could probably arrange, right? Like, you know how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, do that." And it just starts growing and growing. For me, a lot of my entry points into being a composer was being a musician first. I was a cello player recording on the Ruby soundtrack
Yep.
before I was the composer on
the
it.
show.
Yeah. So my first gig in college was writing as a composer for Ruby. But before I wrote for it, I arranged for it. Before I arranged for it, I played for
That's
it.
cool. Wait, what
So-
seasons?
Seasons 2 and 3.
Those are like the best ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
That-
really liked season 1.
Oh.
Wow. Well, I also liked season 1.
No, it's just joking.
Um,
joking.
It had a lot of soul. Montiel was great. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
But, it was one of those things where, and I will say, as an example of how that gig came together, because this is something you can literally do right now. We have the exact same scenario. I was a Berkeley student too, and I was a freshman or so when this started to happen. I was hanging out with friends in 150 in the dorms, and a buddy showed me the opening theme to season 1 of Ruby. This was like when it just came out. Like
That was
this was like
crazy.
he was a Rooster Teeth like red versus blue fan, and they just dropped the main theme, and they were showing the trailers. And he was like, "Hey, you should check this out, because it sounds crazy." And he shows me the song, and it sounds amazing. If you know, this will be the day.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm
Every single opening theme song to that show is so fire.
I will say, without spoilers, if you're considering going to MAGFest this year, you might appreciate something that is being played there. I don't think I'm allowed to say what it is, but I am playing as part of a band
I wonder.
that is playing music from something.
Cool.
You can kind of guess who the artist is if you're aware of like the people who I've stayed collaborating with for my entire career at this point because of my time on Ruby.
Cool.
To give it away immediately. So to show the song really fast to people who haven't heard it yet. So freshman in college, someone shows me this, and I'm like, oh, this is an awesome song. So sick. This is Casey Williams. She is like 13 when she sings this. She sounds like this. She's crazy. She's an incredible singer. I'm a student. I don't have great production chops. And I end up, my friend's like, by the way, guess what? All the drums, fake. They're sequenced drums.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that you could make sequenced drums sound that good back then. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I decided, I was like, I wonder if I can learn how to do that, because that would be good for me as a composer, right? I find out that the guy who wrote the song is actually faculty at Berkeley at the time. And so I reach out to him, like faculty email, like, yo, Jeff, I'm not actually in any of your classes. Can I just come to your office hour? I have some questions about drums. Sure, whatever, dude, come through. And I end up feeling like I'm learning more in that office hour than I was in like any of my classes. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna show up at this office hour every week until I feel like I've learned as much as I can. I proceeded to show up every single week until I graduated from college, for like years after that point.
Whoa, that's so fun.
That's how we became friends. That's how we built a relationship. And that's why I ended up working with him before I even graduated from school. Fast forward like 8 months, we'd started to become friends. We built up a good rapport. He was showing me song mixes before they'd even show up on the show, like, what do you think of this? And at the end of season 1, he showed me this song called Wings that has a cello solo in it. And it's a MIDI cello solo. And I told him, with all the confidence of a Berkeley freshman, oh yeah, no, the song is super sick, dude, but like the cello solo sounds like ass. I could have done better. He's like, no, the fuck you couldn't have. And I was like, hold on. Ran upstairs, grabbed my cello, came back down, because it's all one building. Like the EPD labs, he was an EPD professor, were inside of 150. I grabbed my cello, and I just played it on the spot, and I could, in fact, play better than that. So I was like, see? And he's like, well, damn, you really could have done better. I'll remember that. Fast forward to summer break. I live in Texas, or lived in Texas at the time, and Rooster Teeth has a fan convention, RTX. He's like, hey, do you want to maybe come perform at RTX with me? I have to do this Ruby music panel, and I don't really want to talk, but maybe we can come up with some acoustic arrangements. We come up with them in the hotel, we play it, it's well received. Season 2 gets greenlit, and they say they want acoustic arrangements on the album because it was so well received at the panel. That's how I started.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so cool.
So there's nothing about that specifically that isn't replicable by anyone who has faculty who they respect at college right now if you're a student. I didn't study with the guy. I didn't have specific classes. But I guarantee there are faculty at Berkeley right now who are working on things that you are probably interested in who have very empty office hours.
You're giving me ideas, bro.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, there are also organizations that are really, really cool. I have some cards up here. The Interactive Audio Special Interest Group, the Game Audio Network Guild. I mean, these are good places to, meet people, to network, to create relationships. When you go to the conferences, you'll see the same people over and over and over again. And so I think that there are some formal organizations that you can look at and become a part of that have some pathways there as well, even if you're not in school. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that everybody, if you're a composer right now, you really, if I were starting to get into the industry right now, and I was back in my 20s or 30s or whatever when I was younger, I would seriously be looking at AI companies right now, because I've been doing a bunch of research having to do, for different reasons, and there are a lot of companies that are springing up that are doing really interesting AI work as a tool, right, for composers, where you generate MIDI and then you put it into your DAW and you work with it, not Sono, where you say make a song and it makes a really bad song for you. So I would really be looking at that. I'd be looking at peripheral industries to the game industry, because I just find them fascinating. Digital medicine, right? There's a company called Achille Games where they got stage, whatever it is, they got through the FDA, they got approval for a game for ADHD in kids and now also in adults. So this idea of digital medicine, gamification, that these things are going out everywhere to all parts of our culture, and just outside of the game industry, inside of the game industry. So, I would think about some of those things too. Think entrepreneurially, think outside the box. Game jams are great. They'll, and then make sure you develop your skills.
Yeah.
Right? The skills that you're interested in, and then maybe a few others as well,
Some
so that you
peripheral
can
things.
take on. Because I know, similar to Mason, when I started back in the day, that's the good thing about this. I just want to also echo one thing that Mason said. One of the reasons we're sitting here today is you can tell Mason's very personable, right? So we met each other, we're having conversations, but my wife broke her shoulder when we were over in Europe, in Oslo, and we were having a conversation about, something else, and then he was like, oh, by the way, how's your wife doing, And so, I could already tell that you're a nice guy. We're having a good relationship. We're talking about these things, as just people, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that that's also an important part of it, is like putting yourself out there, meeting people, and give it time. What he was talking about is really true. Perseverance. It just takes time.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Not exactly. Mm-hmm. It just takes time, and don't judge yourself like, oh man, things will happen. Like I've had friends who is fresh out of college, Stephen Harwood, who did one of the Call of Duty scores because his friend was in college, and then he didn't get anything after that, and he was always complaining. So you don't know what your path's going to be, but follow your interests, follow your passions, and good things will happen.
Yeah.
What I always tell my students, and for Berkeley side of things, what's your major?
Composition.
Nice. I teach for film scoring and game scoring, and so there's a class at the end of those programs called Career Workshop for Media Composers, where I basically teach the subject of this particular panel. And the first thing that I always tell people, beginning of day one, I say, look, if you don't listen to a single thing I say about contracts, if you don't listen to a single thing that I say about like the music business, about how work happens, how you get opportunities, any of that, the thing that I want people to like walk away with and remember is that generally speaking, your career tends to correlate with human decency. If you are someone who gives a shit about your community, who participates in a community, who is friends with other people, who cares, who spends your time thinking about ways you can help other people get up and be better, those people are going to turn around and do the same thing for you. Generally speaking, if you are someone who supports and uplifts other people, they're going to like you. And that means they're going to want to see you succeed. And that means they're going to remember you when there's an opportunity that you are the right fit for.
Yeah, and I want to, so yes to all that, but what it also does is it puts you in a position of also being a person who's taking initiative to help other people, right? So, it's not just meeting somebody and like, what are you doing, and hoping somebody gives you a gig, but really creating your own reality, creating your own work. So I did the score for a film, Super Size Me. Some of you may know, back in the day.
That's a great film.
Yeah, so that was, I was living in New York City. I was audio directing at Nickelodeon, and my cousin introduced me to Morgan at that time. So it was just totally like, it's serendipitous, right? It just happened. I didn't plan it. I didn't plan to have a career in the game industry either. I went to Cal Arts, right? So I thought I was just going to make weird music and die poor. That's what they told me, and I'm like, yes, that's awesome.
Real, yeah.
And I still do that, but I do other things as well. So I also want to echo that side of it too, which is like, if you're a musician, be a musician. I tell people that I'm a composer with a big C and a sound designer with a little s. If you put me in a room with a game or a film project and say, what do you want to do? I'll be like, I'll write the score. But I've done a ton of sound design work. I've recorded a ton of VO. I was invited to the first Dora Kathleen's quinceañera because the amount of time we spent in the studio recording her with her grandmother was there, correcting her Spanish, all of that kind of stuff. So, we're not really in this to say no. So if someone's like, hey, do you want to spend, the next 2 weeks editing, sure.
Yes.
And that may lead to the next thing, and to these relationships. So, yeah.
That was really good advice, guys. Thank you.
Hopefully it's what we're here to give you.
Absolutely. Here's for the ISA.
If you have questions, by the way, feel free to just come up to the mic.
And this will give you a discount on the book, and you can look through it after. Yeah, those are left over from GDC.
Thank you so much for asking the first question. It is always really tough in question panels to get the first question going.
Break
and
the
then
ice.
It breaks the ice and it gets a little bit easier for everyone else. So thank you for being the brave person He
Yes.
stepped up and did that.
Absolutely.
Amazing job. Hey, I'm Richard. Did you want to know something about my own experience?
Yes.
Sure.
Cool. I've been playing piano ever since I was in high school. I was in a band. I played forever, but I never really did much of anything for it. I went back to college. I got a computer science degree now. And that's my career. I'm the manager of a software development team.
What company? Can you tell us what company?
I work for a company called Extron. They make like professional audio and video equipment. I do like front end stuff and I do architecture. It's just like that's like my chosen career, my
Awesome.
my thing. Not necessarily my passion. I don't actually like coding outside of work.
But you write in higher languages, C, C sharp, C plus, all
So
those.
I specifically do front end engineering. So that's like my full time job. So I do like Angular. We make like state management things. We make applications for a bunch of different stuff. But
Yeah.
Awesome.
I do know all that stuff, but I have way more experience in just front end design because that's what I do.
Right.
Regardless, after I got my master's degree, I bought myself a DAW
Nice.
as just like, okay, now I got all this free time. I want to start getting back into music because that's what I like doing. So for the past couple of years, I've been producing music, coming from a non-audio production person to now having done it for a few years. Like my idea was to just produce content, like make a song to get better at writing songs and
Yeah.
better at learning production stuff. So learning how to EQ, learning how to mix, learning how to
Yes.
master, learning how reverb affects everything. And that's kind of like my journey right now. I'm putting stuff out that probably isn't like the professional stuff yet, but I'm trying to get myself.
No, but that's good. That's
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the only way you get better in most instances is
Exactly.
by doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So
And what DAW are you using?
Ableton right now.
Okay.
I started with Reason, now I'm in Ableton. A buddy of mine uses Pro Tools, so I have like a little bit of knowledge of everything, but I kind of do everything in Ableton right now.
Yeah.
So I think my question is about like being in the middle of that industry, being on the outside of like everything, like networking and stuff. I basically have to just choose to go to that stuff because I'm not in college. I don't surround
Yeah.
myself with musicians. I wish I could. I just life.
there are a lot of people I know who did not go to college who do great in this space because, frankly, there's never a point
Yeah.
where anyone's like, "Hey, let me see your college degree.
Yeah,
let me see your
exactly.
master's degree. Like, I want to see your resume and work history." It's like that almost
Exactly.
never comes
Yeah.
up, especially as a freelancer. So, like,
Yep.
yeah, that like none of that, for better and worse, none of that matters. Like, the only thing that really matters is, well, like, what's it like working with you? Are you a fun hang? Like,
Exactly.
if I'm crunching on something, are you going to make that more stressful, or are you going to be someone who, like, makes me not hate my job?
Yeah.
And then from a quality of work standpoint, like, well, how good's your music? How good's your sound?
Yep.
Like, are you going to show us things that we hadn't thought of and give us ideas and give us vision? I would rather work, for example, with a composer who has a clear point of view and opinion 10 out of 10 times rather than someone who is more technically proficient
Yep.
but who is like people pleasing, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to work with someone who's trying to guess what I want. I want someone who's going to tell me what they want.
Yeah.
Because if I'm an audio director and I'm hiring you to be a composer,
Yeah.
I trust your aesthetic, I trust your taste, I trust your vision of this, and you are a collaborator with me. I'm wanting you to bring something to the table and bring to the surface that maybe we've figured out, maybe we haven't. I will
Right.
tell you if we know exactly what we need and we just basically need you to clone the spirit of this other thing that exists. But the odds are we're trying to make something that doesn't exist right now.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So it actually answered part of like I guess the two questions that I have. Is there anything a developer like me can do to try to like what does a new producer have to do to have you guys see it and be like, oh, this kind of stands above the rest of the class? If there's any
So-
advice for that kind of thing.
My personal career transition advice for you, if you were looking to transition full time into doing this stuff, is that I would probably take like a parallel path using the experience you already have.
Yeah.
You already work as a developer. It's not a huge leap to go from front end development in a non music context to front end development on musical apps, on musical IP, on musical
Right.
companies, and start to network actively with people in the music industry. Or do the exact same thing going into game dev and game industry. At which point,
Yeah.
if you're at a company where you have access to a music and sound team, you have the opportunity to show them your stuff and get advice and feedback, free of charge,
Yep.
and slowly expand and grow your network in that direction. If you
Okay.
get into games,
Yeah.
you're in games, you'll start meeting people who are out there, and if your stuff is at the right quality level,
Yeah.
you can start applying for those opportunities or networking and introducing yourself to some people as a composer, and that will be how they perceive you.
Here's the other part of that, is that, you have the programming skills, so it might not be exactly what you want to do to start, but you put the programming together with your musical knowledge, and then you're an audio programmer or a music programmer, and now you're like a unicorn in the game industry.
You're incredibly valuable. There are
It-
not
it-
nearly enough.
So there's tons of people who can write good music or write music that sounds cool and get it in front of me. All right, cool. This is great. If it works for a project I'm working on, awesome. We'll talk. There are a lot of people, tons of them, who are being trained at Berkeley and the Conservatory and SF State and different places, and they can all use WISE, they can all use FMOD, right? So all of these skills, technical sound design, right? So you can take it. Then the next step, there's a bunch of people now who have gotten deeper into the engine, right? So you can take your music and sound, you can implement it directly into Unreal, you can do it directly into Unity, right? So you understand the engine framework as well. That next step, where Mason was like, you're incredibly valuable, is like if you can build the application, right, and understand the architecture of that application, you're incredibly valuable, because people who are musically literate and code literate are rare,
Okay.
right? Because most
yeah.
people are like, I just want to write music. I don't want to do code.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. You have a sense of taste that has developed over the years because of your musical experience. Most programmers, by comparison, they might be fans of music, but they
They
aren't
don't know
necessarily
it.
musically literate. They
Exactly.
don't necessarily have an understanding. And so even for like a brilliant programmer, if I go to them and I say,
Yeah.
hey, in order to make our ambiences more realistic, I need a different type of occlusion system for our built-in reverb in Engine, I need you to help build that. Could they theoretically look up the math and look up the programming and try and figure out how to build something like that?
Yeah, I'm already thinking about it. I'd
Totally.
probably go and research this.
Well,
But the
no.
difference is you have musical training.
Yeah.
You'll know if it sounds good when you're testing it.
Well, not
And
just
that-
not just that. It's like if you're talking to a programmer and you're like, okay, I want this to modulate at this time. I want it to adapt and change, and I need to bring it in a different key. They're gonna just look at you and they'll be like, oh, well, okay, I can code it, but I don't know what the heck you're talking about. And
Okay.
you bring those two things together, and it's very
Yeah.
All
powerful.
right, well, now I'm looking at a new job opportunity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
audio
I have to,
programming.
build myself an
I can tell you right now, if you go to Game Sound Con and you talk to Brian Schmidt, or you go to go to GDC and you end up talking to anybody who's working at one of the bigger companies,
Literally
and-
just tell people you are, here's
you-
what I'll say, if
yeah.
you have the skill set, if you just start telling people you're an audio programmer,
Yeah.
you will get interviews on the spot.
go to
They're on
GPT
the-
chat,
yeah,
look
they're
at
on
what
the
an
chat.
audio programmer does, because they'll lock you in a box, essentially. So just understand, you're not going to write music.
I'm locking boxes.
They're just going to lock you in a room, and you're going to build stuff. But that will open up.
And you'll
the
be
other
working
side.
for an audio director,
Right.
working
Okay.
with audio teams
Right.
in a game company. So I will say, for a frame of reference, when I was at Tencent, I had a senior audio programmer role listed, available for 18 or 19 months
Yeah.
before I stopped counting.
Yeah.
When I say that this is an understaffed
Yes.
section of industry, it's you will be the only person who applied that week level of understaffing.
Dude,
Like,
and it's been this way since the 90s.
Yeah.
It's just been this way. This is in the industry. The merger of these two skills are very rare.
Okay.
Yeah. I tell all my students, because every time I start a semester, I'm like, does anybody here do computer programming? And there's always one person who's like, I started in computer programming, but I want to switch to music. And then we have the same conversation that we just had, that you may not want to do this, but when you get out of college, you can earn six figures.
Awesome.
That kind of a thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. Audio. You said audio and
Audio programming.
Audio programming.
Audio
gotcha.
programmer.
So audio programming, you can also look into technical audio design, which is kind of like a parallel field, I would say.
I kind of do that already. I work for audio video equipment, so
Yeah.
I'm intermixed in the industry technical requirements for the devices we build, but it's very...
So what I will say then, if we really want to get some inside baseball on shit that people don't know is a job at this point, you mentioned that you're an architecture engineer.
Yeah.
Audio architecture on consoles,
Yes.
crazy money.
Okay.
Because like no one knows how to do that stuff. Like it is verging on a lost art.
Yeah.
And so being someone who understands like physical engineering and who understands audio
Yeah.
and who understands chip production and who understands programming and has
Yeah.
like all of those things in your experience portfolio, like spoiler alert, there's going to be another Nintendo console.
Yeah.
There's going and like a large part of the design side of that happens for Nintendo of America, not Nintendo of Japan. Like that's a Seattle-based job. That's in America.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this stuff, like Microsoft, that same thing. It'll be in Seattle, not Japan.
Yeah, let me also add to this too, and kind of go back to your question also. So for both of you guys, so GDC, the most interesting part of the Game Developers Conference for me, the most interesting part of here today is all the indie development that's going on, and all these games and these teams are coming out of different places. That's where all the really cool game design, I think, is happening. Triple A,
Yeah.
AAA is kind of like, okay, it's AAA, you know, God of War 17, okay, cool, right? I mean, sequels that happen, games that take 7-year production cycles, right? I was super lucky at
I wish it was 7 years. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like 10 now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, right? I
Yeah.
mean, whereas at Nickelodeon, I mean, I really had the benefit over the years of like, you know, the longest project we'll do will be 6-7 months, right? You know, of iPad, iOS games, and they're filled with rich content, dude. And so some are short, some are long, but I'm always, new projects are always, it's like a conveyor belt, and new projects are always coming down the pike, whether I'm farming them out or doing them myself, it doesn't matter, right? So it's a whole different kind of churn. I would really look at the indie game side too,
Yeah.
and companies that are doing indie development, you know, because it's cool stuff is happening now.
It's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
with people.
And so on the indie game side, I'm going to point out something that probably intuitively you know, but maybe you haven't actually thought about it. I want everyone in here to think about your favorite new composer of like the last 10, 15 years. Picture whoever that person is. Where did you first hear their music? I'm talking game composers. It's probably an indie game, correct?
Yeah.
Like I would say 9 out 10 times out of 10. Because frankly,
Yeah.
if you actually look, and this is something that I'll say is a fundamental flaw of game audio education programs, by and large in the country right now, it's something that I talk about a lot.
Yep.
Most of them are orchestrally based. Most composers in games are not starting off writing scores for full orchestra because they don't have the budget for that. They're
Yes.
starting in the indie space. They're mostly starting in these like interesting or unique or
right.
quirky sounds, or maybe it's rock based, maybe it's synth based, whatever.
If you want to do an orchestral score for a game, you're competing against, you know, just composers that have been there for years, you know, Austin Wintory, you know, that's who you're competing against.
Austin Wintory is probably the last composer who, for reference, he really broke out in
Yeah.
2012, 13 years ago.
That's right.
He's probably the last composer who broke out with an orchestral score. Just about every single
That's
score
right.
that has really broken big since then that came from the indie space was not orchestral.
Right.
And even Austin's, it was small ensemble orchestral. It wasn't like a big Hollywood
right.
orchestra sound.
Yeah, Journey
Um,
and Flower. Yeah, so Lena Raine, Rich Freeland. I mean, these are wonderful they're friends of mine and wonderful composers.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
so indie is where talent is breaking.
Yep.
Indie are arguably the tastemakers who are determining which directions a lot of these like AAA games are going. You know, there's a lot of this stuff that's breaking at the indie level. So frankly,
Yeah.
that is simultaneously the harder and the more interesting market to a certain degree.
Agreed. And so to your point about game jams, right? So game jams are great to do to kind of, you know, but they can be super frustrating and not really pay off in the way that you hoped all the time or most of the time. But indie teams, right? So if you know, Lena Raine is a great story, right? Her story is amazing. It's like, you know, they were making Celeste. It was a 2-person team, and they just heard she puts out her own music, right? So she's got her own scores out on just different services or up on Spotify or SoundCloud or whatever. They heard her music, and they're like, "This would be great. Do you want to work with us?" And that's what led to her
Same thing
her scoring
with
Celeste.
Claire Obscure Expedition 33. They found the composer on SoundCloud.
Yeah,
Like, you know, he'd never written for a game as far as I'm aware.
yeah.
And, you know, that game's done amazingly well.
And that gets back to the other point that we had, and this just speaking to the musicians and the composers in the room. if you're a composer, if you're a musician, then when you're not working on a game, what are you working on? You should be writing your own music, creating your own sound, developing your own style. That's what people are going to notice. The biggest compliment I've ever gotten about my music is that people are like, I can tell if it's your stuff in a kid's game or if it's just an album that I picked up of yours. And I'm like, that's really flattering, right? Because, one of my heroes is Frank Zappa. So, if I had my own moniker, if I have my own sound, that's rare. If anybody in this room, I like that you did that. It's like, so think about your favorite composers, right? Or who some of your favorite composers are. It's because they have a unique and individual style that they've developed, right? And that's rare. That's actually rare, right? In game industry, in film industry, we just hear the same crap churned out over and over and over again. And then suddenly you get a Don Davis doing the Matrix score, and we're all like, ooh, well, that's unique and that's different. So those are the scores I look for. That's what I'm looking for in musicians.
I do have I have another question, but I don't want to take up any more time. If somebody else has questions, I could ask at the end.
If anyone else has questions, maybe line up behind Richard. That way we kind of know.
And I can just ask us to sit down and we'll From a standpoint of somebody who's trying to get to like professional level, how would I go about getting feedback from somebody who actually would give the right feedback versus other avenues where it's like 99% of them are other people like me who are giving feedback but not the right kind of feedback?
That's a really...
I would argue that there is no such thing perfectly as the right kind of feedback. At the end of the day, all of us are people, and some people may have more impressive jobs or titles or experience. That doesn't mean that their actual feedback is better, because frankly, it doesn't mean that they understand what you are trying to do better than you do or whatever. Like, the key answer here isn't necessarily I want to find the most successful people who could give me the most legitimate feedback. It's I want to find people who are in this community who like authentically care about this stuff. Like if I'm working on my EDM production chops, I don't care if the audio directors at Riot Games are like, needs a little more salt. Yeah. Even though I want them to hire me for something. I care about if James Landino thinks my shit slaps. Like I care if like the other people like, I want to show it to other composers in that case and get their advice and feedback. And, sometimes they're going to have different tastes. They're not going to like what you're doing, and that's okay. Music is subjective. There isn't a correct answer of like, if you just set your EQ at the following settings, your song will sound crisp and clean.
Make sure you compress it so much that it shoots out of the speaker and hurts people. IASIC. Yeah. Absolutely. So here. Yeah, 100%. I talk to people all the time. I'll give you my card. You can send me your music. I'm happy to take a listen to it. What I hate about your question, and I don't mean to diss on your question, what I hate about it is that there's sort of an implied understanding to it that I need to make it sound like something else. I need to make my music, for it to sound right, it has to sound like, X, Y, or Z, and that's just a formula for creating, wallpaper music, right? And that's not to say, yes, I need to learn how to use compressors. I need to make it sound decent, make it sound good, but I also, like Mason, there's no perfect mix, and frankly, I might listen to something that you send to me and I'll be like, and it could be the worst production ever, but it's an incredible song or it's an incredible piece. And I'll be like, this is fantastic. Anybody can push the buttons to make the stuff sound great, but where's the creativity? Where's your, inner compass?
And I will say, and this is something where the better you are, the more undeniable you are, the more every single problem just sort of melts away. I've absolutely had instances where I met composers or songwriters with the most ass production, just terrible production, terrible sounding music, no idea how to arrange, no idea how to do basically anything, no idea what they're talking about, but like they wrote the perfect song, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just hire a producer to produce their stuff for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Problem solved. Like there are so many times where things like that happen, and even it goes even further because sometimes that person that I'm talking about is like a famous artist. It's like a famous composer. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, they just send piano sketches and that's all. But you know what? I don't care. I'm telling you right now, When Joe Hisaishi sends you a piano sketch, you're like, great, we'll orchestrate it. We'll make it happen.
Exactly.
Because it's a Joe Hisaishi piano sketch, and of course
Yeah.
it's good. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. With time, like, you can get past almost any problem if you are just writing good enough music to a certain degree.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it.
Oh.
I couldn't
Next
have said it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm here to be the confirmation bias king. Not really, but what's up?
Hey.
I'm gonna say, let's bring the mic up for you.
Yeah, I'm a little on my phone. Well, hey, first of all, thanks for that question. That's very relevant to what I was going to ask. That's why I was like, yeah, keep going. This is all information I'm here at. Hey, my name's Alex. Perhaps at an earlier kind of stage as to what your questions were talking about. I'm kind of like in the beginning of a pivot consideration. Been playing in orchestras all my life. I'm a violinist, but you know,
You're a great
composition-
violinist, by the way.
Thank you so much. I've always enjoyed jamming with you. But yeah, I think on my mind, and ever since I was younger, has always been this consideration of like, I love game soundtracks. I love creating worlds and, you know, imagery, and through music. So, I mean, currently in the stage of like, okay, well, what would it look like to start doing this more other than fiddling around on my own time or imagining things in my head and, you know, making audio logs of this and failing to get it down in a DAW or something like that. In terms of real paths of starting to get into the industry, I love the ideas or, you know, getting into things like audio programming. Background, I'm a software engineer by trade, currently in between jobs. That's why I'm pivoting, considering these things. So learning about these types of other relevant job applications that can get me more exposure to people who do this stuff that I think is really cool. I'm definitely going to check out that information. But yeah, the main question is, my issue thus far has primarily been one of focus. I think there's almost too much information out there.
I was thinking about that, how messed up we all, you know, so many of my students, they'll come in, they've watched a million YouTube videos, or they've listened to Jacob Collier tell them how they're supposed to produce their stuff, or somebody else,
Jacob's a mensch. We don't need to bully him.
No, I'm not bullying him at all. I'm just saying that there's so much information about how, you know, the technical stuff that we're talking about. And then I'll say, open up your Pro Tools session, let me see, or your session, let me see. They got 4 compressors on one track, and I'm like, why are you doing this? So, you know,
Because I want my shit to crush, yo.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
Gotta get
so
it fast,
basic.
you know?
You know, yeah. There's a lot of information and a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of stuff that easily you can. Look, I'm autodidactic. I was self-taught. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to college till I was 24. So I was, you know, playing and gigging and playing bass and recording and working in recording studios. And I spent thousands of hours actually recording other bands just so I can learn how to record my own music, right? So, you know, there's a lot of information out there, but getting back to what we were talking about before is just, you know, whether it's the 5,000 or the 10,000 hour rule, I don't know what the rule is now, but, you know, putting that time in, that's the part for yourself. Putting that time in is invaluable. You have to do it.
I want to quickly say one thing from a music production standpoint, just because I want to push back on an unintentional thing that you just said when you were like, well, you have 4 compressors on
Okay,
here.
good.
So I just want to make a quick note. And this is going to sound really silly, and I'll clarify what I mean. Meters aren't real. They can't hurt you. If it's red, it doesn't matter. At a certain point, the only thing that actually matters is, does this sound good? Does it slap? Like, you can have something literally be clipping, and if the clipping adds to the vibe, who cares? Billie Eilish clipped on one of the most successful singles of, like, last year or whatever. It's fine. The thing that matters, like, we pay attention to our meters, and we pay attention to our game staging and our headroom and all these other things, because generally speaking, it helps us achieve results that are generally aligned with what we're generally trying to do. But there are no hard rules in composition. There are no hard rules in production. At the end of the day, if something sounds good, that's what you do. Unless you're trying to make something that sounds bad because it's the specific vibe of what you need, in which case, make it sound bad. But, like, never feel like there's I don't know, this is really messy the way I'm doing it. Who cares? Like, everything is messy when you look at it. I promise you, if I open up, like, one of my sessions, like, there are so many audio engineering professors who would like gasp and faint if they saw the unhinged shit that I was doing in there. But I promise you, their students like what I'm cooking. Like, I promise it works out at the end of the day. So make of it what you will.
Yeah, I mean, I fundamentally agree, but I do think that, you know, this is one of the reasons that we proposed this talk is it's great because you have two generations, you know, of folks who are still working in the industry. So, you know, I come from a hardcore, you know, studio background where, you know, you learn routing. There's an input, there's an output. You learn how compressors work. You learn these things so that you can make your stuff sound good. So I don't disagree with what you said. I completely agree. If it sounds good, it sounds good. But there are ways to get there more efficiently and
Yeah, there are things that make it easier, and that's why you learn all of these various things in the first place.
Yeah.
But also, at the end of the day, you do whatever you got to do. If I'm trying to make really, really crushed, loud electronic dance music,
Yeah.
I probably will have like 4 compressors in series, like at some point on something to get that specific sound.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes that's how you do it.
Yep.
Because it gives you like a gradual, a little bit of compression from this type, a little bit of this type, a little bit of this type, a little bit of this type.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're like, oh, and also let's just throw OTT on the master at like 40%.
Yeah.
Why not?
We live in a world where, you know, it didn't used to be this way. You live in a world where it's like there's so many freaking plugins out there. There's so many, you know, and there are new ones being developed all the time, and they're super cool, and you can spend all your money on them and stuff like that. So it's challenging. There's definitely overload going on.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, to that point. So if I'm just starting to get my feet wet, and there's so much out there, right? Like, I guess there's not really a single correct answer to this, but like, I've been considering, like, is the path then, you know, go to one of these, I don't know, post-education programs, or look at school programs for a little bit more of that focus?
It depends on what's good for you. And I know that that's a lame answer, but like,
Yeah.
you can kind of walk yourself through the questions that you have to ask. One, how do you process information? Are you an oral listener? Are you verbal? Are you someone who needs to see things to read it? Like, do you do well with video content? Do you do well with like a teacher in the room? Do you need someone to tutor you personally? Like,
Yeah.
think first about all of that. Like, what is your learning paradigm of how do you ingest information most efficiently? Because I will tell you right now, everything that you could possibly learn in music college, as far as the actual knowledge goes, there's a lot of value outside of it from like a networking standpoint, from a community standpoint, from like a personal growth standpoint. But all of the hard knowledge, it's on YouTube somewhere. It's in an Ultimate Guitar article somewhere. There's an interview somewhere with Nobu Uematsu where he's going to tell you the secret of what he did, and everything will make sense. Like, you can find the information out there if you know how to look for it.
Or at a much lower cost, you can find someone who will come to your home, or you'll go to their house and you'll go to the studio, and you can do it that way too, right? Just to highlight your point.
So it really just comes down to you and like, how do you like to learn? Because I will tell you, there are some people who I tell them, like, yeah, you should go to college, or you should get a master's degree, you should get a secondary thing.
Yeah.
But you are always weighing it against the opportunity potential costs. So what I often will tell people is like, look, if you're going to get a degree in music, for example, and you want to be a composer in games, I want you to think very actively before you sign a student loan about exactly what that monthly payment will be when you're coming out of college.
Yeah.
And realize that is the minimum amount of money, before you factor in your housing costs, your food, or whatever, that you have to make to not be like in like arrears with your loan, to not be behind times on that payment. And that might mean that just off living costs and loan alone, you have to have a day job. And if you have to have a day job, all of a sudden you're committing minimum 8-9 hours a day to something that isn't your music, isn't your art, isn't looking for opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, a large part of the secret of how I made it out of college and survived, when I was in college, I had a scholarship that covered most of my tuition. I had a job as an RA that covered most of the rest of it, and I gigged like 4 times a week minimum. Plus, I was playing in sessions in school as like a paid member of the recording ensemble. And so the end result is like I was working constantly, but I graduated debt free. And then when I graduated college, I moved into a shithole apartment in Allston in Boston. Shout outs for everyone who's seen like a rat gang out there. And I was splitting a bedroom with my partner at the time and with 7 other people who were in like the different rooms in this small apartment. And so my rent was like $375 a month. See, but that's the thing is like a bedroom was like $800 or whatever it was, $775 I think, and there were like 4 bedrooms, each at 700 something. It was a shitty apartment at the time, and wasn't as expensive as it is now, but it was still like over $3,000 a month for an apartment. I couldn't remotely afford that,
Yeah.
but I was splitting the smallest bedroom. My partner at the time worked in food service, so I got free Raising Cane's at night. I lived off cheap, free food, had a shithole apartment. I didn't have a cell phone because I couldn't afford to have one, but I knew that if I kept my costs as low as I could, I only needed to make like $600 a month to like make all of my costs. And as a cello player, I could easily do that if I just played a little more than 2 weddings per month, because a wedding would pay at least $250 in the Boston area back then. As a result of that, I didn't have a day job when I graduated college. I just started playing cello gigs and hunting for opportunities. I spent like 12 hours a day writing music and producing and trying to meet people, and like all of my money went into savings to pay for trips to Japan, because that was where I was starting to get opportunities, because the anime thing was popping off because of Ruby and then Beyblade and on and on and on, the other anime series I've worked on. But like, that's how I afforded to do that. That's how I survived. Because I just lived like a rat for like 4 years, saving as much money as possible and only spending it to like go to these events and, you know, invest in the career in that regard.
It's about commitment level, right? Because you were asking about focus. It's about commitment level. What are, and this is like all the time, tell students or people that I hang out with, is that, as a musician, you're going to work harder than anyone else that you know. Like your friends who go to business school and they're like, oh yeah, it's so hard at business school. It's like you're going to work twice as hard as they are, because you have to do all the things that Mason just said, right? You're going to gig, you're going to do this, you're finding your path, you're trying to develop your craft at the same time you're trying to build your whatever your brand, your ability to make money and all that stuff. So you will work harder. It takes a lot of commitment.
I think that we are running out of time, by the way. I think we've got maybe one final.
Can we take a picture at the end with everyone?
Yeah.
We should do that at the end.
I think maybe that's right now, technically, because it's like 1:43. Like, we're out of time. I'm pretty sure this is an hour-long panel, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're out of time, Steve.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm happy to hang out. We can
All right, we can answer any additional questions
Also, not
outside.
to shill the book, but I will tell you guys that a lot of the questions that have come up are in this book. This one's focused on everything. It's really a 101, the course that I've taught for a long time about everything in terms of game audio, and this is specifically for music and sound in games. So just for music. So there's a barcode here. I don't have a lot of these, but you can scan it. It'll get you a discount. I'm not selling these now. I'm not trying to shill books. I'm just saying that a lot of the questions that have come up are that's why we wrote the book.
To make a
Because
very
we kept getting the same
to
question.
make a very dumb binary programming joke about this, this is the game audio equivalent of everything, everywhere, all at 0 once. Thank you for letting me do that. That was more important to me than
Can we
anything
take a
else in
photo?
my career.